More to investigate a lot of the scams that are happening in the banking industry. So I developed software that will probably control and prevent, these types of activities so that the banks will not lose money. Now, in that eventful day on May 9, we asked ourselves 1 hour after the election was over, and we got the results, fastest result. Now let me go back to, I like to stand up because I used to be a lecturer and I teach. By the way, what I teach is I give lessons on bank investment scams. So that's how I progress into being an IT myself. Okay, we presented this actually to one group, and we start with. So the first question that I was asked, because I'm also as an IT, what really happened on that day? So I couldn't answer that because I said, I just woke up and I couldn't answer that. And then I was asked next, how did this happen? That opened my eyes and I said, what really happened? So I was going through the process of, I was not involved in the election process, so I consulted with some election IT experts. So I found out a lot of things, and through my experience, I was able to at least determine how these things could have happened. The last slide probably, which is not there, is that how should the election, how should it have happen? In other words, ano ba talaga dapat nangyari? This is what we call the transparency survey. You're familiar with this one. So if you look at the process here, this is how our election was conducted. First of all, on the lower part here is the BCMs. You cast your ballot, and at the end of the voting day, the totals, the ERs will be produced and sent to the transparency. It's very, very quick. We know that. And then the next level, it goes to the city or the municipality, and then the provincial, and all the way to the canvasser, the board of canvassers. If you look at this slide, it looks very simple. But then, the other side of that, the flip side of that is, how come it came out the way it happened? So, I was comparing it with what I used to do, okay? Because unless I see the program, which is the SD card, the memory, then I will not be able to assess or evaluate how the program was conducted, how it was processed there. So, for example, I use my slide here because I developed programs that are even more than this number of steps. The next slide. This is what we call the foreign exchange system, which is, I developed this for certain banks. It's what I call the anti-money laundering system. So if you have that, it would help the bank, which is, they benefited from this one. So they put a stop on the possible fraud from the banking sector. Remember, the banks are going to be affected if they do not control this, because a lot of banks suffer from losses. Now let's go back to the first slide. If you look at this, there are already certain safeguards that were discussed with taken up. Number one, for example, when you cast your ballot, there is a receipt. That is one safeguard. Number two, it was presented to the several IT experts that the source code of the program is going to be kept in the central bank vault. And the third one will be the random manual audit. And there are about 2 more safeguards. I will not discuss them. I will leave them to the next speaker. So the problem here that I checked with the process is that at the time that it was being reviewed, the SD card was shown to produce exactly what it was supposed to do. In other words, tama po yung SD card. Pag pinasok mo yung balota, it will read exactly. But then, what happened after, we don't know. That's why I'm asking a lot of experts also. What happened? You have these BCMs, 107,000 BCMs around the country, and the SD cards are very critical here. It's like what you had in your cell phone. If the SD cards are different from the one that was tested, then we have a problem. So, what do we know about the problems there? Now, the problem is that they could have been configured. And when I say configured, meaning to say, in the SD card that was distributed to 107,000, this is what could have happened. Somebody, the programmer, probably 2 weeks before, probably a day or 2 days before, I don't really know when they were installed, they could have altered that part of the SD card. So the question that was asked, Frank, if you are an IT, you do the coding, etc. Is it possible that the SD card could have been manipulated? Okay, so I said, yes, because if, this is what they call that, historically, that the 2016 up to the 2004, they automated to check that there won't be any more dagdag bawas. So, without the computerized, automated, dapat wala nang dagdag bawas. So, is it possible that there could be a dagdag bawas electronically? I said, possibly, yes. How could it happen? This is how it could happen. If I'm the programmer, I'm the one installing here. If there is a vote cast for A, it can be counted as B. In 2 codes, 2 lines, we can code it. So, what happens next? What happens next? Forget the ballot. You shade X, it's going to be counted as Y. Now, in the course of these other discussions with our IT experts here, they will show to you that it could happen. Because if I, as a programmer, can do it, maybe the end result will be exactly what I was describing. So, look at these BCMs. Nobody, I think, not all of us are aware that once it is over, in seconds, that's true, in seconds, once you press to that machine, automatically the results are transmitted to the transparency server. What happened was that in the transparency server, automatically it's about 10 million, 20 million. That will be explained later. So, I will not question that because that's how the machine was configured. But the question is whether tama ba that it was counted like this? Until I'm able to access and see those cards randomly, if I can do it myself, then I will be able to tell the whole body that, for example, the results here in the ballots, it says, ito ang balota, pero SD card says, ito ang basa ko. Now, if you look at the patterns later on that will be described by one of our resource person, it can happen. And, you know, in the past election, 2016-19, wala naman po nangyari ganito eh. So, it opened our eyes here to say that, what has really happened here? So, as far as I'm concerned, I cannot answer the question like, na ano ba? Nagalaw ba? I do not know. That's why I said, give me that access and I will be able to check that. So, as far as we're concerned, the process here, the program here, is so easy, you know. I mean, I'll go to the next slide, please. I'll tell you something about what, next slide, please. Ito po ang inahanap namin pagdating po sa mga application dun sa SD card. Pag binuksan po ang SD card, makikita mo po ninyo, meron ba mga control features? Are there, for example, this is an ordinary application. Makikita po ninyo yan. May mga reports. Sa reports po makikita dito. I'm sorry, I'm speaking in the dialect now because some people might want to ask me here. These are the things that you will find in an application. Ordinary application. There has to be control, audit, etc. I want to check that out. In fact, if I can check this out, yung pumupunta doon sa transmission or the transparency server, makikita ko doon saan nagaling ba? Because all of a sudden, 20 minutes saan nagaling yun. We will be able to check the log date or time that pumasok yung mga ERs mo. So, that is my clue. I can use this to check on the SD card. Next slide, please. So, then, I look at this. There are flags that should have been ano. Ito yung aking ginagawa, bank application. Sa dulo po nito, makikita mo po that the banks, ang mga software nila, may regulatory. Same source code, bigger button. Pero pagdating po sa application, sino pang regulatory ng IT? That's where I come in now and I say, doon ba sa pag-test, pag-install ng mga SD card, dapat meron din IT watchdog, para makita na, pareho doon. And then afterwards, after the election, titignan namin ulit yan. If I'm given that opportunity. And this is not moving forward because we want to protect our election system that it is really our objective to be transparent. And nobody will say, oh, off the top, ito na nangyari. So, that is none. So, I like to tell you a story here, which is what happened in in an organization. Meron pa mga IT school na gumawa po ng ganito kasi malaki nag-election sila. Ito po lumalabas. Meron din silang dagdag bawas. Nagdadagdag bawas kasi gusto nila manali mga ibang kandidato nila. So, gumawa po ng isang school na parehong-pareho. It's even cheaper because we just hired these people and they conducted this for one organization. May shading din, may random din, result, and then automatic may audit. Itong sa national election natin, of course, yung nangyari noon, control mo yun, may shading din tayo, may random manual, but who is going to audit that? There's no provision here that the kind of audit, the post-audit ang talking about. Wala po ito. So by comparison, ito nga, mas mura yan, ano? Ito sa school election. Parehong-pareho naman yan eh. The process is the same. So this is our concern, and I feel that the people should know that it should not be different, it should not be difficult to say na ito, may pumapasok na mairan, like 2016, nakikita mo po, tumatagdag, etc. Hindi parang biglaan po. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I will end now my presentation because as far as I'm concerned, kung nakita ko po yun, mababalidate po yung sinasabi ko by our next speaker. Yung sa isang control, which is the RMA. So, ladies and gentlemen,
let us first analyze the timeline when it was still manual elections. It used to take as long as 42 days from election day. The manual precinct counting only takes about 5 to 12 hours. In exceptional cases, it might take a day, 24 hours. What takes very long is actually the canvassing. Okay. And because of the length of time, it can be as long as 42 days na. No? The COMELEC decided, not only COMELEC, but everybody was calling for doing something about our elections. Kasi there was one time na montik nang hindi umabot ng June 30. No? Inabot ng 42 days after the election day. No? So sabi nila, okay, let's automate our elections. No? And they formed a committee to study what we can do. And in fact, the reason I know that is because I was part of the group that crafted the law, Republic Act 9369, which was sponsored, the main sponsor was Senator Dick Gordon. Next slide, please. The law says an act amending Republic Act number 8436 as amended by 9369 entitled an act authorizing the Commission on Elections to use an automated election to encourage transparency, credibility, fairness, and accuracy of elections. In the title itself, it says, it uses the word transparency because that is going to be the concentration of my presentation. Transparency. Section 1, it says, it is the policy of the state to ensure free, orderly, honest, peaceful, credible, and informed elections which shall involve the use of an automated election system that will ensure that the process shall be transparent and credible and that the results shall be fast, accurate, and reflective of the genuine will of the people. Next slide, please. Okay, so let me go back to this first slide. For easy access by voters who would like to do their own tabulation and monitoring of the canvassing. Next slide, please. Now, what are the advantages of the proposed automated election system? All steps of the election process are transparent to the voting public. Precinct tally is done under the watchful eyes of the voters. Kasi sa presinto mismo accuracy of the counting is very high. After all, manual counts are the basis of accuracy. Manual ang counting na nire-recommend ko. Cost at approximately 4 billion or less is much lower than that of the DCMs presently used by COMELEC, which is 10 billion. Very minimal electoral board training and no voter training necessary. Vulnerability to cheating is very low. Only retail cheating, if at all. Software will use open source and can be reviewed by anybody interested. Dapat nilalagay na yan sa public website. Since only laptops and servers will be used, walang VCM, they can be purchased in any big city. Therefore, less logistics concerns. And there will be sales opportunities that will be spread around kasi lahat nakikinabang. No warehousing and equipment maintenance necessary kasi mga laptops nga lang yan saka servers, as all the machines can be sold to private schools and or donated to public schools after each election. A new set can be purchased every 3 years kasi napababa nga natin instead of 10 billion, 4 billion or less na lang, no? No ballot box snatching as the results are transmitted electronically. Next slide, please. The only disadvantage is that precinct tallying will be 5 to 12 hours longer than using a vote counting machine. Out of a throughput time, nobody will know. Like now, kung merong ginagawa ang COMELEC kung minamanipulate nila, we won't know. And since 2010, we have been accepting the results of the elections. Kaya nagtataka na lang tayo, ba't ganun ang nangyari? But we accept that. The software could have bugs and or malware. Sa Amerika, may mga states na nadidiscover nila, may bugs pala yung program. Voters are left with no choice but to make the shift. It does not require any change in the law. It will only lengthen the election period by perhaps 5 to 12 hours out of a week or so. For transparency's and accuracy's sake, we hope the COMELEC would eventually make the right decision. And as a final statement, I would like to say that if we count the ballots, we count the votes at the precincts and not automate the precinct counting, or maybe I should say, when we automate the precinct counting, we lose the transparency. Walang nakakakita. So the question is, can we trust that? Hindi natin nakita. So,
work for the candidacy of Senator Ping Lacson, no? Former military din siya. And kung bakit to explain yung mga constant vote ratio, no? Ang sinasabi nila palagi is ito ay dahil sa law of large numbers, no? And what is that law for the layman? No? That law says simply it is a theorem that describes the result of performing the same experiment large number of times. No? According to this law, ito mangyayari. For example, ikaw ay dice, no? Alam niyo yung dice? 6 yung face ng dice, di ba? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kung mag-roll ka ng dice, at yan ay hindi loaded, yan ay hindi daya, palagi yan pag lumapat sa sahig ay either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And yung chance na siya ay maglapag ng 1 is the same chance as the 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 kung hindi loaded yung dice, no? So ang law of large number says, kung itapon mo yan a large number of time, in this case, makita natin around 400 to 500, yung kung add mo yung i-sum up mo yung numbers na nag-land siya. So 6 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 divided by mo ng, let's say, 600. Ito ang lalabas. Kahit na hindi ka pa nagtapo ng dice, alam mo na, if you throw that dice large number of times, sigurado ito yung magiging outcome niya. No? Sigurado yan. It's a simple statistical equation that will show this. No? Yung toss the coin naman, no? It can either land heads, or tails. No? Ang toss the coins. And if you throw it number of times, the number of times that it will land heads will be the same of number of times that it will land tails. No? So, ito yung magiging expected result ng pag-toss ng coin using a large number of times. Ito, sigurado ito, no? Bago ka pa na-toss ng coin, alam na natin lahat na ito ang magiging resulta. No? After tossing or rolling the dice a large number of times. No? And that is actually what is dictated by the strong law of large number. Dalawang component yung law na yan eh. Mayroon tayong strong law of large numbers referring na yung sigurado, no? Kahit na hindi mo pa na-toss yung coin or na-roll yung dice, sigurado ka na pag maraming beses mo yan ginawa, ito ang mga lalabas, no? 100% sure or nearly sure, no? Pero meron naman tayong weak law of large numbers. Ito po ay katulad ng ginagawa ng mga poll survey, no? Na magpo-poll sila ng mga about 2,000 to 3,000 people, small numbers lang, and then come up with some kind of prediction. So itong, for example, ang latest prediction ng Polls Asia na si BBM will take about 56%, at si Lenny will be about, hindi ko mabasa pa rin, 20 plus, 28, 27, no? Yun ang prediction nila, using small numbers. No? So, ito ay probable na magiging resulta ng election natin. Pero wait, dahil kailangan gawin mo muna ang election para malaman mo kung ano talaga ang accuracy nitong prediction nitong poll. No? Hindi katulad nito na kahit hindi mo pagawain, alam mo na kaagad na ito magiging resulta ng ginawang eksperimento. Pero dito, hindi ito ma-validate, no? Kung hindi mo gagawain yung election. Okay, next slide please. Okay, so May 9, nag-umpisa, nag-transmit yung nagbigay sa publiko ng resulta ng election through the transparency server, no? Kayo na sa media, kayo ang nagpo-post yan sa publiko na ito yung update ng resulta ng election. And nag-start actually yung pag-publish as 7:17 p.m. of May 8. Kaya lang inumpisan ko yung second update was on 8:02 p.m. of May 9. No? Nag-umpisa ako dito kasi dito ko nakita yung pattern, no, ng boto. So ito yung actual na nakuha ni BBM as per na pinablis ng mga media natin, taking their data from the COMELEC transparency server. No? So ito, may another pa ito na nagtito na naging 31 plus, no, nagtapos, no, yung counting, 31 million na nakuha ni BBM. No? Ito naman ang actual votes na pinakita. No? Pero dito napupuna ng tao noon na 47.7, 47.5, 47.3, 47, 47. At dito lumabas yung tinatawag na constant ratio. Okay? Pero ano ang explanation ng COMELEC? And that can be explained by the law of large number. Okay, siguro ma-explain nila ito. Pero bakit ganyan din ang nangyari kay Pacquiao? 888888999, halos magkapareho. Yan din ang nangyari kay Isko. 6666666. Yan din ang nangyari kay Pilakson. So may konti na akong nakita pa hindi normal. Kasi itong mga itong mga updates na ito ay pag-transmit ng mga BCM, no? Well, I can explain that later. Next slide. Hindi lang sa presidential, kahit na sa you will notice this even in the vice presidential. No? Kung i-divide mo, no? Dito ang common denominator yung kay Sara. Doon sa president, yung common denominator natin is yung boto na nakuha ni BBM. Common. Isa lang ang ginawa natin denominator sa pagsuri nitong Kiko over Sara, Kiko over Sara, Kiko over Sara vote ratio, no? So, nakita niyo naman na mayroon ulit yung tinatawag natin na constant vote ratio. Hindi lang sa Vice President, kundi pati sa Presidente, hindi lang po kay Lenny at kay BBM, kundi sa lahat ng kandidato down the line. No? At itong, since ito ay nag-umpisa ng 8:02, 1 hour, 7 o'clock nagsarado ang election. No? 8 o'clock, 8:02 or 1 hour later, nagkaroon na tayo ng trend na ganito, no? At yung trend na ito ay katumbas ng mga poll surveys. No? So, paano ma-explain yan? Of course, alam na natin explanation ng COMELEC, law of large numbers, no? Pero, papakita ko na mukhang reporting, irregularity rin, no? Next slide. Ito na-explain na ito, no? There are about 107,000 VCA machines na dineploy nationwide, no? And 7 p.m. and about nagsara lahat yan at nag-transmit. Kita nyo na lahat yung 1,700 magta-transmit sa transparent server. Walang ibang dinadaan diretso. Kaya mabilis yung pagkuha natin ng result from the transparency server, no? Then yung yung isa naman yung diniscuss ng aking dalawang co-speakers ay dadaan pa sa process. Ito yung tinatawag na legal or monitored process na dito. Ito yung tinatawag natin na unofficial partial result. Unofficial. Ito naman ay ang official, no? Kaya palagi nilang ine-emphasize na ang nito is unofficial partial result. No? Sige, okay, dito na ngayon napapakita ko sa inyo na paano. Balik tayo doon sa nakuha natin sa COMELEC transparency server kay BBM Lenny lang, no? 8:02 p.m. ito yung pinalabas ng transparency server. 12 million si BBM, 5.7 million si Lenny. This involves, first hour to, no? Kakasara lang ng 7 o'clock, first hour, may 12 million na. This involves about 12,000 VCM na transmit na and around 20 million votes on the first hour. Mabilis ka talaga ang counting. Pero dito natin mahalata. Okay, so dito makompute natin yung vote ratio. It's simply dividing the vote of Lenny by the votes of BBM. So we get 47%, no? Dito. Ngayon, tingnan nyo ito. Ito yung magtataka talaga kayo, no? Using this number, no? Ito ay lumabas na, no? Alam na ito, 802. Alam na ito yung vote ratio. But if you use this number, i-multiply mo sa vote itong second update, 15 million, ang makukuha nyo ito. Again, if you get this, alam na ito na natin lahat, no? Dahil lumabas na dito ng 802 eh. Pero, kung i-multiply mo ito sa nakuha ni BBM, doon sa pinabagong update na 817, ang makukuha nyo sagot ay ito. Ito yung actual na lumabas sa transparency server, no? For an error of just minus 29,000 or 0.04%. Grabe naman ka-accurate yan. No? And ito, i-multiply mo sa sunod na update ito makukuha mo, ito yung number ng bukas. Ganyan din, palagi ganyan. So, ito, you can see, nandoon sa by parts kasi pumasok eh. Sabi nila, cumulative yan, ganyan. Pero by parts pumasok, no? Sa transparency level. So, yung first batch, ito yung resulta. Kinuha lang natin yung vote ratio, no? At yung lumabas na yung second batch, nagkaroon ng relasyon between the result of the first batch and the result of the second batch. At ang error is very, very small. Lahat yan. Kita nyo. Meron pa nga dalawang batches na halos pareho yung error eh. No? Kita mo, ito tatlong pan. Ito ay talagang impossibly, statistically improbable talaga. Kahit na mahirap explain dahil kasi itong result na ito, this divided by this, you get the vote ratio in percentage. Multiply that by this, you get a predicted vote. You add the error, you get the actual vote. No? So, simple equation. Sipakyaw na ito, no? Pagbalik mo ulit kay Ivan, kay Jenny. Okay, you get this equation. Simple, linear equation lang. I-compute nyo. No? Pag nasabay na kayo, i-compute nyo. Ay Pacquiao. Ganyan din, the same equation. Ganyan na equation, next slide please. Kay Isko. The same equation. Ganyan din ang equation kay Ping Lacson. No? At hindi lang sa presidential. That same pattern is also the same doon sa vice president. Next slide. So dito naman, si Sara naman ang gagamit natin common denominator, no? Kiko, actual votes, no? 8. Hindi yellow.
Meron din yellow.
Pero ito yung ini-expect mo kung bibili ka ng watermelon, di ba? Sa merkado, no? Pero kung makakita ka ng ganito, next slide please. Anong iisipin mo? Ito by the way, mabibili mo ito sa Lazada. You can buy this in Lazada. So ito, anong masasabi nyo dito? Next slide. Okay, sa second and third. The third and fourth. Dapat close na yan. Dapat may mga overlap yan, di ba? Normal. Hindi natin nakita yan. Then, ganyan din sa Vice President. Okay. These are just observation. Wala kami nung sinasabi dito. Anong implication dito. Next slide, please. Ito pang mga unique sa ating election. BBM got the highest number of votes ever in our history. No? Percentage votes of the number of people who voted. The result of the people's vote using a jury, using a large number jury na hindi naintindihan ng mga tao, is already a fact or something na dapat hindi mangyari. Dapat yung election system natin ay katulad ng sinasabi ni Gas, na yung tao pala nakikita nila at walang kaduda-duda yung resulta kahit transparent. No? All the way nakikita ng tao ang ginagawa. At kung mayroon mga ganitong resulta na statistically tatanggapin niya ng mga tao. Pero ngayon, matatanggap ba ng taong bayan yung resulta? Salamat po.
Makikita po namin na tama yan before they are transmitted to the Hindi po pwede sabihin natin, at that particular time, papadala na yun. Kailangan po yun. And then sabi po ni Mr. COMELEC si Gas po, kailangan po yung hybrid, importante po yun. We should have, again, we go back to that. Marami na pong countries resorting to manual. Now, as far as we're concerned, yung po pinakita kong let's say, ako, pag tumingin po kasi isang application, I'm sure you know that. Isang application, may nahanap po ako dyan parate. If I look at this one, ito does contain all these reports, audit, etc. May tip po mga bangko. Kasi po makikita ko doon kung meron po nagloloko. And I was able to catch a lot of bank officers na gagawa ng kalukuhan. Nakikita po yun sa reports. Isa lang, tingin ko, hindi ko na kailangan tingnan ng source code. Makikita ko po yun. That's why if I'm allowed to take a look at this one, I'll be able to detect whether there was what we call this manipulation. As I said, in 2 codes, kaya pong i-order yung pagbilang. Yan po masabi ko, Gas.
Election, this was a text by a journalist.
Right now, NAMFREL is conducting the random manual audit. So, pumili ng 757 precincts, kinuha yung mga ballot boxes, at binibilang manually. Ang pumili ng 757 ballot boxes ay COMELEC. Noong 2010 and 2013, tambiolo ang pagpili ng mga ballot boxes na bibilangin. 2016, 19 at saka ngayon, pinautomate nila yung selection ng mga presinto na bibilangin. So, ganun ang nangyayari ngayon. Can I trust that? I don't know. Yung binijudge. So, pare-pareho naman natin nakikita kung ano ginagawa ng COMELEC. No? So, sana ginawa nilang transparent pati yung pagpili ng mga presinto. Nawala na naman ang transparency doon.
May I add to what?
Tapos na ba? Tapos na ba yung bilang?
Hindi pa.
Kailan ang target?
Ang estimate nila is June 21.
To get your audit finished.
Completion ng audit. No?
Actually, can be part of this. Maybe the future, independent of the COMELEC, pre-passing the vote, and then during and even after, para makita ko walang nagbabago dun sa SD card. Yan lang po masasabi ko na in the future, we will be safe na transparent talaga po ang mangyayari at kasi kontrolado, hindi yung parang papabayaan mo ng bahala ng transparency. Hindi po kapalit-paliwala yun. Yun lang po may darating.
Thank you very much. May question dito from the... May microphone, pwede pati...
Solid evidence, circumstantial lahat. No? Pero ito ay yung tinatawag sa investigative body, no? Lahat ng police, lahat ng military, at ito tinatawag na smoking gun. No? Kung may usok na barilyo, ay nagamit yung barilyo yun. So, itong smoking gun ay yung statistically improbable na talagang lumabas. Nakita natin na lumabas from the transparency server. Walang makatanggingan, no? Na talaga yun ang mga numero na lumabas. Na very, very constant ang mga ratio. At very, very predictable ang mga resulta ng succeeding updates. No? At yung percentage error, makita nyo halos less than 1%. No? So ito ay hindi pwedeng mangyari kung talagang random. Ito ay makikita nyo na pwede actually gumawa ng isang first year college student, pwede gumawa ng isang linear equation para i-describe yung nangyari. Hindi ka makagawa ng simpleng equation to describe a really randomized, fair and honest election.
May
dadagdag lang ako. When we automated the precinct counting, kasi I'm always for manual precinct counting. When we automated the precinct counting, we not only made it much easier to cheat, but we also made it more difficult to detect the cheating. Kaya ang hirap hanapin kung nasan kasi in-automate eh. Hindi natin nakikita eh, nawala yung transparency. No? So we allowed them, we made them easier to cheat, but more difficult to detect the cheating.
May daragdag na po sa kasagutan kanina, no? Kasi po ako sa bagwa po ako, ano? Mahilig ako manghuli. There's what you call circumstantial. Kasi sinasabi nyo na ito solid. In fact, some of the lawyers, I belong to a law fraternity in UP, so I have so many lawyer friends. Kailangan may solid ka. When you go to the Supreme Court, kailangan ebidensya. But there is also what you call the circumstantial. Sabi po sa bangko, pag may nawalan ng pera in a certain area, so lahat yung mga nandun ay suspect. Okay? So, yun po mga suspect na yun, kung mahuhuli po namin, kasi may nahuhuli po kami, sino last person, etc. Wala, hindi na nakita yung ebidensya. So, may tinatawag po kami dyan na inaakusahan namin siya ng what we call qualified theft. Pag inakusahan ko na ng qualified theft, pag 500,000 na pagkulong ka, wala kang bail. Alam po natin yan. So, yung mga member pa rin sa bangko, sinabi ko, mag-disclose ka na kasi kakasuhan kita ng qualified theft. If that's the case, you go to jail. I've sent some people to the court and probably what happened after, our lawyers took over. So, yun po may sasagot din.
Bago wala, walang ebidensya, pero nandiyan yung ebidensya kung payagan lang tayo, yung ballot box. By law, dapat inaalagaan yan. Kasi kung may protest, doon pupunta yung protesta. But, kita niyo naman, ang mahal. No, isang kandidato na mag-protest, and it takes, matatapos na nga ang term ni Lenny, hindi pa tapos yung protest ni BBM, at of course, talo siya. No? Kasi once na pa rin, ang dali pa rin, kung alam na ito yung mga ballot boxes na nasa protesta, ang dali pa rin. Sino magkakabantay nyo na palitan yung mga bolota?
We're citizens, and we are not speaking for anybody, any party. Wala po kaming binabanggit dito, kanino po kami partido dito. So yung mga natalo po, whether it is to the national level or into the local level, kasi maraming sa akin dahil, well, I was doing a lot of things, no? I was posting on my Facebook, so marami na tayo tumingin ng video. I cannot do anything because we don't have the access. What we're trying to explain here is what we call, as I mentioned earlier, to one reporter, puro mga circumstances po na sa pananaw namin, ito po ang nangyari na sabi namin, kung baga papayagan mo kami, at ito'y nakikita namin, at masasabi namin ngayon, halimbawa, pinagbigyan kami, at nakita namin na wala naman pala, isasabihin namin sa taong bayan, wala naman palang dayan eh. We cannot categorically say that there was cheating. We are only saying that probably, possibly, you know, I mean, some people say, you will be accused of libel or something like that. Wala pa kami sinasabi, who is behind, who is the one responsible, kasi hindi namin po alam eh. Ako po nagtatanong din, sabi ko, sino ba programmer yun kung sakali man? Kung malinis naman po yun, wala naman akong basayan. I cannot accuse, being a former banker, I cannot accuse anybody, you are the one I want to granted, then you have to explain that. So, malinis naman po yan. Hindi ka ba po nagsasabi dito na whatever we're saying here is something like conjecture lang namin, iniisip lang namin po yun. Hindi po yan eh. Ito po, Excel lang po yan. Anybody who's in the mathematics, ginawa ni Professor, Excel lang po yan. Multiply this, ito diba?
Para pong awareness lang ito na pwede naman pala na hindi madaya o pwedeng madaya, parang gano'n. So, next time, di na maulit kung sakali mapatunayan.
Yes, yun ang aming plan. Ito, mag-check ba namin na kung pan, okay na, pwede na natin acceptin ang resulta. Pero please, sa susunod na election, baguhin na natin. Para itong mga questions ngayon, ay hindi palagi since 2010, ulit ng ulit, dahil Smartmatic, bakit ba si President Duterte nanalo na, ay sinabi na palitan yung Smartmatic na hindi sinunod na COMELEC. No? So yun lang amin. Acceptin na natin kung talagang yan ang para mahusay sa ating bayan, pero please, hindi na dapat ito maulit, itong mga questions na ito sa susunod na election.
Uli po dagdagan doon sa sinabi para may kasagutan pa rin sa sinabi. Meron pa ako nagsalita nun eh. Iba naman po ako nagsasalita po, sabi nila, Frank, meron na po dito, ito mga election experts din. Sabi nila, meron na mga safeguards. Yung nga binagit ko, there are safeguards already, no, in place. Yung may resibo ka, may source code, etc. Pero nung binagit ko yung opportunity na magkakaroon ka ng manipulation, etc. Sabi niya, dapat idagdag lang. In the next election, dapat sabihin natin na meron talaga IT body or selected na yan talaga magbabantay on the SD card kasi po yung trabaho ko. So, I can manipulate any kind of program. Anybody, even my own staff, sabi ko, can you read A to read as B? Pwede po, 2 lines. If A, hindi. Hindi na program.
So, ibig sabihin mag-isip ng gusto ang COMELEC na para ang mga katulad niyo po ay walang questions na sa susunod.
Hybrid mo yan.
Ito po ang sagot.
Ang Napakasimple lang na solusyon eh. Hindi na sana tayo kailangan magtuwa ng random manual audit. Right now, may mga teacher na nandoon pa sa Diamond Hotel na pag sila, yung
May audit pa ngayon.
they're working in a bubble. Yung mga teacher na nandoon, hindi pwedeng lumabas ng hotel.
Since May 9.
Well, nagpapalit naman every
Yes.
week.
Oo.
So, another batch of teachers, no?
Ah,
Ngayon, nandito tayo lahat at pinag-uusapan natin. Kasi may mga questions sa mga tao. No? Talaga bang hindi nagkadayaan, ganyan, ano? Napakasimple na solusyon eh. Gawin natin manual sa presinto ang pagbibilang. Ibalik to sa dati, no? Manual ang ano. Hindi naman babagal kasi yung canvassing, pinakita ko yung chart eh, di ba? Canvassing ang matagal eh. Eh kung automated yung canvassing, bibilis yan. Pero yung sa presinto, dapat nakikita ng mga tao. Dahil kailangan ng eleksyon natin, nasa title mismo ng batas. Yung eleksyon natin ay dapat transparent. Dapat na-witness ng mga botante at naiintindihan nila kung anong ginagawa ng COMELEC. Importante yan. Simple lang ang solusyon.
Question for General Lee.
Idadagdag lang yun.
Question for General Lee. It was sent to KKK para sa bayan. We understand that your fraternity, the UP Vanguard, already made representations with the COMELEC even before the elections